These are the instructions for using the Excel spreadsheet for correlation and regression. I'm going to walk you through the steps to create to find the correlation value, correlation coefficient R, and the regression line y equals ax plus b, based on the formulas from the textbook, and using some data for here. We will also get the correlation and regression line directly using the Excel formulas as a check and create the scatter plot. So these instructions, I'm working this in OneDrive. I suggest you copy the data file from CourseDen and put it in your OneDrive folder, because the instructions, OneDrive works a little differently than straight in the Microsoft Excel app. So first you'll notice that I already have a set of data in here. You can change the data to whatever data values you want, and you can have less than 30 data values. But I have just a kind of a made up set of random 30 data points here. So what we want to do is to create the formulas to calculate R using the computation formula from the textbook. And they require the product of each x times y. We're going to square each x value, square each y value. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is to go into this first cell here for x times y. And we have to tell it to multiply these x and y values. You don't want to, the purpose of using a spreadsheet is let the spreadsheet do the work. And if the data changes, everything automatically. It's set up as a formula and referencing those values. Do not use a calculator to calculate the answer yourself and type in the answer. That's not how a spreadsheet works. So we can tell the spreadsheet, anytime you want to tell the spreadsheet to calculate something, you start off with an equal sign. So we start typing equals, and then we want to get the x value, so we click on the x value. You notice it says B5 because that's the cell, column B, row 5 of where that x value is. And then times, we type an asterisk, and then click the y value, and then enter. If you notice, it does it automatically. If I were to change these x or y values, it would automatically change the product. Then we need x squared. So I say equals, click on where the x value is, and then to square, it's the caret above the 6, and then 2, that's second power, that's squaring, enter. And then we do the same for the y value, equals the y value squared. Okay, now we're going to copy these. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight all 3 of those and then do copy. You can do Control C or go up to Edit and Copy. We've copied that, and I'm going to paste it starting in every single one of these rows. I'm highlighting down all the rows here. Just a beginning row, it's going to copy it across, but in all of those rows. And then we do Paste or Control V. And you notice it copies that formula down, and it's referencing. You notice when I copy the formula down, as I move down to a different row, it references a different row. So it's always going to the correct corresponding set of data. So now we have our data values. All right. Now we want the sum. In the formula, it uses the sum of each of these columns. So up here, we're going to have the sums, you notice up here. So we're going to go get the sum of the x values. Okay, so we go up here, we're going to start typing equals, and then there's a function called sum. If you start typing sum, you'll see the function. You can select it, and then it asks you to, and we're going to highlight all the x values, okay, and then enter, and that gives the sum. You notice it says the sum of everything in column B5 to B34, which is everything in the yellow data values. So even if you use less than 30 values, it's just going to sum up whatever's there. You can highlight the whole thing. It's okay. It's not going to, if there's any blanks, it's going to count them as zeros anyway. But now we can copy this. Again, can copy that. And then we're going to paste it in all the other ones above, except for the last column. That's something different. And if we do Control Paste, or Edit Paste, or Control V, we get the sum of each column now. Now to get the formula, we need the count n Obviously it's 30, but I want the spreadsheet to calculate that for us. There's a function called count. We start typing equals count, and there it is. I'm going to select the count. And it was trying to select the data directly above it. I don't want what's above it. I want what's in. So all we have to do is count the x values, because it's the same for the x and the y. So it shows the correct 30. Now for the numerator formula is the count n times the sum xy, which we have up here, minus the sum of x times the sum of y. So to do that, we're going to go in here, we're going to say equals, and then click on the count, which is n, times, click on the cell here for the sum of xy, then type minus, then click on the sum of the x, times, asterisk, click on where the sum of the y is, and that's our formula. It references those cells. Enter, and that is the numerator. Okay, for the denominator, it has two parts. They're both square roots multiplied together, and one is the square root using the x values, one is the square root using the y values. And this is how it works. So we're going to start off typing equals, and then we want square root. Choose the square root function, and then in the square root function we want to select its n, the count, times the sum of x squared, which is up here in E3, minus, and then we get the sum of the x itself in B3, but we have to square that. So we put the caret square, close the parentheses, right? That's the first square root. We're not done yet. So we have to do asterisk, multiply this by another square root. We don't have to start an equal sign. It's only at the very beginning of the formula. So we type square root, parentheses, and then we got to get our n times the y squared minus the sum of the y values being squared. Close the parentheses, enter. There's our denominator. Now for the correlation r, it's just the numerator divided by denominator. So we're going to say equals, click the numerator, divide symbol, click denominator, enter. Notice our correlation is a negative value, because you notice as the x values are going up, the y values are going down. And I picked values that it goes down in a very strong linear pattern, so it's a very strong linear correlation, very close to -1. Now, to check all these and create the scatter plot, up here, we're going to go get the mean, the average x. So there's a function for the average. So we're going to type equals AVG, and you'll see the average function. We want this straight up average function, and select the x values. Enter. Do the same for the y values. Equals AV average. Select the y values. Okay, now we want the correlation coefficient R. Excel can calculate it directly, but we did it the computation formula, so you see how it's computed, and you might have to work it out on a test. But we'll see that this is going to match it. It should match it, right? So to get that, we want equals CORR. You see the correlation function. Now the correlation function is backwards. The first set of numbers is not the x, it's the y values first. So you select the y values, then you type comma, then you select the second array of data is the x values. Enter. There it is. You see our negative 0.936? That's the same value we calculated with the computational formula. Now we want the slope and the intercept of the actual regression line. It's the line that this data fits most closest to. So we have a function called slope. So equals, there's slope. And again, we do the y first, comma, then the x. Enter. For the intercept, it's the intercept function. And we select the y values, comma, x values, enter. So we have all of our values. Now that we have the slope and intercept of the best fitting regression line, we want to plug our x values into the regression line to see what the regression line thinks the y value should be. That's called y hat, estimated y values. So we're going to go here and tell it to calculate that. So we're going to say equals, and it's the ax plus b or mx plus b from college algebra, slope. So we click on the slope value, times, click on the first x value, plus the intercept. And then we hit enter. And that's giving us what's predicted. So the actual y value was 50, but the predicted is 40. Now, before we copy this, if we just copy this, it's not going to go, it's going to get messed up because it's going to reference down the different x values, but it's going to try to reference down to different slope and intercept values. To tell it always to look at these particular slope and intercept, only move the x. For the ones that are the slope and intercept, which are the values in column J, we have to put a $ in between the letter and the number for the cell. So J $8 and J $7. Once you put those $ in there, it will always look in that exact cell. Okay? Then we can copy, Control V, and then scroll down and highlight the rest of the column and then paste. Now we have our estimated y values. Okay? Now we're ready to create the scatter plot and the regression line. So what we're going to do is start off by highlighting just the data. Mouse, highlight that data in X and Y, but then hold down Control, or if you're in Apple, using Apple products, hold down the Command key, and also highlight the Y hat. If you notice up here in green, it shows B, C, and G. All three of those columns highlighted, but not the ones in between. And then we're going to move here. We have to do, bring this down a little bit. We have to do Insert, and then we're going to create a scatter plot. Don't do recommended charts. Click on here. It shows scatter plot with only markers. That's what we want. And then we're going to move this scatter plot over here so we can see everything. Now the scatter plot, it did both series. The blue are the actual data values. You notice it's a pretty strong linear pattern. The orange are the y hat values, are the predicted values using the actual line and going across there. Now, I want that to be, instead of dots in the orange, I want it to be an actual line. So to change that, we're going to click on that second series, the orange dots, right click and click Format. When Format comes up, we're going to click Turn on the Trend Line, and then the marker options. I'm going to click, instead of automatic marker, I'm going to click None. So it just shows the line itself, and then we'll close that. And there you have your line. And if you want, you can go click and change the chart title, maybe add labels, and I restricted the instructions to move it to here. So that's how you can use, this is helping you understand how spreadsheets work, creating charts, creating formulas, but also use it in the context of learning the statistics values of correlation and correlation coefficient R and the regression line. And that's it.